My sister didn't invite me to her wedding even after I paid for it. She said I would ruin the atmosphere. Her smile disappeared when I canceled the venue at the last moment. But then she did something she regretted. The first time I realized something was wrong was when my sister Dany posted an engagement photo on Facebook that I hadn't seen or heard about. My mom called me later that night and gushed like it was a royal wedding announcement. I just laughed and said, "Wow, thanks for inviting me to the announcement party." Mom didn't catch the sarcasm. A week later, Dany finally called me. Not to invite me or anything, just to ask if I could help with the wedding, which was weird because we're not close. We never had that finish each other's sentences. Sibling bond. Growing up, she treated me more like the weird cousin you only talk to at funerals. Still, I figured maybe this was her extending an olive branch. She said she'd found the perfect venue, a winery in Soma. All fancy chandeliers and manicured hedges and outdoor fountains. The rent was obscene, but she sounded excited. And after hearing how Mark's parents weren't helping much, I relented. I just gotten a big bonus from work. And honestly, part of me thought maybe this would bring us closer. So, I wired the money directly to the venue. 14,000 and change. She texted me back, "Thanks," with a champagne emoji. That was it. Fast forward 3 months. No updates, no invitations, not even a Christmas card. Then one night, my cousin Emily posts a picture of a custom wedding invitation on her story. I clicked through, assuming mine was in the mail. It wasn't. I waited a few days. Nothing. Finally, I asked Dany if she had a wrong address or something. She didn't reply for a day, then finally sent me this. "I just think you could ruin the atmosphere." That was all she wrote. No context, like I was a threat to her vibe or something. I stared at the message and didn't know whether to laugh or scream. So, I called the winery, confirmed that the reservation was still under my name. It was. Then I asked about their cancellation policy. Turns out if I canceled within a week, I'd get most of my money back. So I did. I told them to put the refund on my account and thank them for their time. They were nice about it, almost too nice, which made me think this wasn't the first wedding they'd seen fall apart due to family drama. 3 days later, I finally got a call from Dany. "No, hello. What did you do?" I asked her what she meant. "The vineyard," she said. "They said the reservation was canceled." "Did you cancel it?" I told her, "Yes, I did." Seemed wasteful to pay for something I wasn't invited to. Dead silence. Then she said, "You're unbelievable," and hung up. She didn't post anything after that. No cryptic quotes, no TikToks, nothing. I figured maybe she was looking for a new place to hang out. Frankly, I was content to let it end there. She didn't want me at her wedding, fine, but I wasn't going to finance it. Then came the email from Mark. Subject line, "Need to talk." And that's when things got interesting. 2 days after I led the venue, I got an email from Mark with the subject line, "Need to talk." I almost deleted it. I thought it might be some embarrassing attempt to guilt me into paying for something again. But something told me to open it. The guy sounded more confused than angry. He said he just found out I'd paid for the venue and he wanted to talk to me in person. He even offered to meet me nearby. Said it wouldn't take long. We met at a quiet bar on the outskirts of town. The place was almost empty, just a few regulars drinking beers and watching a muted baseball game. Mark looked like he hadn't slept. He kept checking his phone, then laid it face down on the table. He immediately told me that Dany never mentioned that I was the one who paid for the venue. She said it was a surprise gift from one of her old college friends who bailed at the last minute. I didn't say anything at first. I just took a sip of my drink, then asked him if she had told him why I wasn't invited. He shook his head. Then I pulled out my phone, scrolled through the texts, and showed him the exact message she'd sent. "I just think you might ruin the atmosphere." He stared at it for a long time. Then he said, "I don't get it. You gave her 14 grand and she didn't even want you there." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was ridiculous. And then I told him something I hadn't planned, to something I thought he deserved to know now that he was marrying into this circus. I told him that Dany had been seeing someone else on and off, a guy named Ryan, a bartender at some dive bar in the Mission. I only found out because she used my Netflix account at his place more than once. I checked again last week, still there, still active. Same device name, Brian's iPad. Mark didn't freak out. He didn't say anything for a long time, just nodded slowly and said he had a lot to think about. Then he thanked me and left. No drama, no yelling. That almost worried me more. I didn't hear from Dany until the next morning. I woke up to 17 missed calls and over 30 texts. She called me every name in the book. She said I was a traitor, a freak, a loser with no life. She said I was obsessed with ruining hers because I couldn't do anything of my own. That was rich coming from someone who'd been using people as stepping stones ever since she learned to lie with a smile. By noon, she'd gotten our parents involved. Told them I was sabotaging her wedding out of jealousy, that I'd hacked her accounts, stalked her fiancé, even made up the Ryan thing. So I went to my parents' house. I figured I'd take the heat right off the bat. I walked in expecting my mom to be in the middle of a meltdown and my dad to be reading a magazine pretending none of this was happening. Instead, I walked into an ambush, but not the kind I was expecting. My mom was angry, not at me, with Dany. Apparently, that was the last straw for her. My mom started bringing up things I didn't even know about, how Dany had guilt, tripped her into paying off her credit cards, lied about paying back borrowed money, and constantly pitted people in the family against each other. My father didn't say much, but when he did, it was clear that he was finished, too. He said, "You don't treat people like tools, Dany, especially not family." When Dany finally showed up, she came in ready for battle. She tried the same routine, yelling, blaming, even crying, but it wasn't working anymore. She could feel it. She turned to me and said something about how I'd always been bitter because she was the successful one and that I was pathetic because I had to take her down to feel relevant. I just pulled out my phone and opened Netflix, scrolled down to the device history and showed it to my parents. Ryan's iPad logged in from San Francisco at 2 a.m. 2 nights ago. She froze, stared at it, then looked at our mom. Nothing but silence. The wedding was canceled the next day. Mark sent a note to all their guests saying it was postponed indefinitely. No explanation, just dropped off the wedding radar. Dany moved back into my parents' house 3 days later. Her face appeared less on social media. Her complaints began to show up more in real life. She spent most mornings in a bathrobe, pacing the house and muttering about me like I was a soap opera villain. Every time I visited, she acted like I'd ruined her life. And the more she said it, the more I realized she wasn't wrong. She just didn't realize how far I was willing to go. It wasn't over. Not even close. After the wedding was called off, Dany was quiet online but loud in real life. My parents heard it every day, how I was toxic, how I'd ruined her chance at happiness, how I sabotaged the most important day of her life out of spite. She made it her mission to rewrite the story, casting herself as the victim and me as the bitter villain. What upset her most was that Mark wasn't playing along. He didn't make a scene. He didn't storm back or beg her to explain. He just disappeared. Clean break. And that probably hurt more than anything I did. I stayed away for a few weeks until my mom called and said she needed help moving some boxes in the garage. When I got there, Dany was sitting at the kitchen table scrolling through her phone like she was waiting to be noticed. I said hi. She didn't respond. Later, as I was finishing up in the garage, she came out and said she knew what I had done, that I was the reason Mark left, that I'd manipulated him, and that he didn't believe the things I said about Ryan, but that he was weak and easily influenced. I didn't respond, not at first, but something about the way she said it got under my skin. So, I pulled out my phone and did something petty. I'll admit, I screenshotted the Netflix history again. The same device, still active, still logging in every few days from a different location in San Francisco. Then I sent it to Mark. No message, just the screenshot. Took him about 10 minutes to respond. He thanked me and said he appreciated the confirmation. I thought that was it, but then he called. He said he'd seen some signs lately that Dany was trying to get back in touch with him. Subtle things, texts that sounded innocent but weren't vague references to second chances, and even a surprise visit to his apartment that he didn't let her in for. He said he wanted to make sure he wasn't making a mistake by leaving. I said, "You're not." He thanked me again. Then he asked a question I wasn't expecting. How long had she been seeing him? I told him I didn't know for sure, but I suspected it had overlapped with their engagement. He grew quiet. I could hear music playing faintly in the background. Then he said I was going to propose to her a year ago, but something told me to wait. That hit me harder than I expected. A few days later, Dany found out that I'd been in touch with Mark again. I didn't even have to tell her. She just knew. Maybe he finally blocked her. Or maybe someone told her we talked. Either way, she exploded. Total meltdown. She called my mom in tears and said that I was obsessed with destroying her life and that I was poisoning people against her. My mom didn't say much, just told her to stop looking for sympathy, when all she did was lie and lash out. That night, Dany texted me a sentence. "You're dead to me," and I laughed because finally, she was done pretending. I should have let it go, but I didn't. After she told me I was dead to her, I thought maybe we were finally done. No more drama, no more back and forth. But Dany doesn't do well with silence. 3 days later, she launched a campaign to turn the extended family against me. Group texts, Facebook posts with vague captions like, "Betrayal always comes from within." Even a lengthy rant on her Instagram story about toxic people hiding behind family titles. First, it was just annoying. Then I started getting calls from aunts I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly concerned, asking if everything was okay between us. She was dragging it out like a slow soap opera, only she'd already lost her audience. Most people didn't bite. A few even asked me what really happened. I didn't say much, just that some lies finally caught up with her. But then she crossed the line. One night, I stopped by my parents' house to drop off a package for my dad. He'd ordered a rare record and had it sent to my apartment by mistake. When I got there, Dany was sitting on the porch talking on her phone. She didn't look up. I dropped the box in, said a quick hello to my mom, and left. 20 minutes later, I got a message from one of my coworkers. "Dude, did your sister just post this about you?" Attached was a screenshot from Dany's story. It was a picture of me from years ago, college. Messy hair, drunk smile, arm around a girl I barely remember. And she captioned it, "Funny how the one who talks about betrayal used to cheat on every girl he ever dated." I stared at the screen, stunned. Not just because it was a low blow, but because it wasn't even true. I'd had my messy relationships, sure, but this pure fiction. I knew then that she wanted war, and she was going to get it. I waited 2 days. Let her bask in the false validation of her 3 remaining friends who commented with things like, "You deserve peace," and "Haters going to hate." Then I texted Mark again. I asked him if Dany had ever told him about the fake job offer she bragged about getting last year, the one she used as leverage to get him to help her pay off her student loans. She told him it was for a nonprofit in Seattle, something about youth outreach. The job never existed. She made it up because she thought he was losing interest and needed a little shakeup. She told me all this last summer, laughing like it was a romance novel plot twist. Mark said he remembered. He said he even helped her celebrate it, so I told him the truth. He didn't answer for hours. Then finally, "I think I need to talk to your parents." At first, I didn't know what he meant, but the next day I found out he'd gone over to their house. He sat down with my mom and dad, told them everything, every lie, every manipulation, even the money he gave her that he never saw again. When Dany came home and saw him sitting there, she lost it, screamed at them all, accused me of coaching him, said I was weaponizing the past. And for once, my parents didn't defend her. My dad stood up and told her she had to leave the house. Not forever, just for a while. They needed space and she clearly needed help. She started crying, then turned around and said if she left, she'd never come back. No one stopped her. She slammed the door behind her and left. The silence that followed was almost sacred. Later that night, my mother called and asked me if I was okay. I said yes. Then she said something I hadn't expected. "I think she finally knows she can't manipulate her way out of anything anymore." I wanted to believe that, but I knew Dany and she wasn't done. For a few days, it felt like things were settling down. Dany had stormed off. Mark had finally seen her for who she was, and my parents were emotionally wrung out enough to stop taking sides. I went back to work, kept to myself, didn't post anything. I figured the worst was over. Then I got tagged in a Reddit post. No joke. Some random account with a throwaway username wrote a post title. My brother ruined my wedding, my engagement, and my life. What should I do? It was full of half-truths, outright lies, and just enough real details to make it clear that it was about me. She portrayed herself as a poor, emotionally abused sister who had asked me to help with the wedding only to be emotionally blackmailed and publicly humiliated. After a misunderstanding, it got attention. Not a lot, but enough. A few people bought it. Some even called me out by name in the comments. Dany must have been feeding them my info privately. That's when I realized she wasn't done trying to punish me. She just moved the battleground online. So, I did something I hadn't done before. I replied, "Not on Reddit. There's no point in arguing with strangers." But I started talking. I texted every relative who reached out with questions. I told the truth, plain and simple. I sent screenshots, timelines, receipts. I didn't spin it. I just showed them what really happened. And the thing is, people listened because the facts were uglier than any story they could spin. Her web began to unravel slowly. At first, a few cousins stopped responding to her stories. An aunt who used to blindly defend her suddenly commented on one of her sympathy posts. I heard a different version of that. I wasn't exactly winning, but I wasn't losing either. Then came the final straw. I got a message from Mark, short and to the point. He told me that Dany had contacted him again. This time, not to apologize, but to threaten. She said if he didn't clear her name and tell people I was lying, she would leak his old texts, try to spin their breakup as emotional abuse, and let the internet decide. Mark had receipts too, and he wasn't afraid to use them anymore. He posted a short, respectful statement on his own page. Just one paragraph, no names, but anyone who knew the story knew who he was talking about. He said he'd been manipulated, that the truth was worse than anyone knew, and that he hoped the person involved would get help, but he wouldn't be part of the circus anymore. Dany imploded. She made her account private, blocked half the family, and left a screaming voicemail for my mom that ended with, "I hope you're all happy with what Jake did." My mom didn't respond. My dad didn't either. Dany moved to a friend's apartment for a while, but within a week, she was back at my parents' house like a twisted boomerang. Only now, she was bitter, silent, and paranoid. Every time I visited, she would leave the room. Every conversation with our parents somehow came back to me, to what a monster I was, to how no one ever stood up for her. And the best part, I stopped responding. No texts, no comments, no drama. I let her scream into the void and just lived my life, which to her was the most unforgivable betrayal of all. By the time winter came, Dany had become a permanent ghost in her own house. She still lived with my parents, but she rarely came out of her room unless she had something to complain about me, about life, about how no one supported her. She'd walk past me in silence when I passed, except for the occasional muttered insult under her breath. Things like sociopath or snake. She still believed she was the wrong party. Or maybe she just had to believe that because the alternative was too humiliating. I didn't care anymore. Honestly, I was over it until I found out that she was talking to Ryan again. That part didn't surprise me. She never really broke up with him. But what got my attention was when I heard that she told him everything. Not just about the wedding, about me, about what she said I did to her, that I broke up her engagement out of jealousy, that I was still obsessed with her, that I had stolen money from the wedding fund, a wild new allegation I hadn't heard before. Then came the twist. Ryan sent me a message. I didn't even know this guy had my number. His message was weird, like a half threat, half apology. He said something like, "I don't know what your deal is with Dany, but you better stop dragging her name around, man. She told me everything. I don't want to get involved, but if he had to what? Beat me up. Send a TikTok." I didn't respond. I just screenshotted it and sat on it. But something felt wrong. Ryan wasn't the threatening type. This felt planted, scripted, like she wanted him to reach out, like she was testing something. So I tested something back. I waited a few days, then dropped a carefully planted lie through a mutual friend someone I knew was still talking to Dany, but wasn't exactly loyal to her. I mentioned that Ryan had been messaging other girls again, that one of them had screenshots, that it looked like Dany was walking into the same trap twice. I let it simmer. 3 days later, I got a text from my mom. Dany's losing it. What happened? Apparently, she confronted Ryan. He denied everything. She didn't believe him. She blew up, accused him of being sent by me to destroy her again, and blocked him and everything. She spiraled into a complete meltdown, screaming, crying, threatening to move out again. She told my parents that I was stalking her relationships and ruining any chance she had at love. My dad finally snapped. He told her to either get therapy or move out. She called him abusive. And me? I just watched from a distance. I didn't lift a finger that time. All I did was hand her a mirror. Here's the part that still gets me. 2 weeks later, I get this email from Dany. Just one sentence. You made your point. I hope it was worth it. No apology, no ownership, just bitterness. And yes, I made my point. I wasn't the one who ruined her life. She did. I just turned on the light. And what she saw in the mirror, that was her revenge, not mine. Now she has to live with it. And me? I sleep well. 3 months passed. The dust settled. The drama cooled like old coffee. Dany hardly left the house. She stopped posting online altogether, which was almost unnerving, like watching a volcano go quiet and wondering if it's done erupting or just saving itself for something bigger. I moved on, got a new job offer, started dating someone really low-key, not someone Dany would ever run into. Life was quiet, peaceful. And then my mom called me out of the blue and said the words I least expected to hear. She's pregnant. I was in the middle of grocery shopping. I had actually dropped a carton of eggs. She's what? Pregnant, my mother repeated. She told me last night. Said she's keeping it, but she won't say who the father is. I didn't say anything. Not because I was shocked. But because I was already connecting dots in my head. I asked, is it Ryan? My mom didn't answer right away. Then she said, she says it's none of our business. Which basically meant yes. Dany had spent months publicly blowing up every relationship she had: family, fiancé, friends, and now she was hiding a pregnancy like it was some new power move. The kicker, she wanted me to be the godfather. I thought my mother was joking. She wasn't. She said it would be a good way to make peace. I laughed so hard I had to hang up. 2 days later, Dany texted me directly. The first time in months. She said she'd been doing a lot of thinking and wanted to start over for the baby's sake. She said I'd always been her only real family, and that she hoped I could put the past behind us. I didn't respond. Then came the real kicker. A week later, I got a message request on Instagram from a fake L-looking account. No profile picture, no followers. The message was one line. Ask her if she's sure it's even Ryan's. I froze. I texted back. Who is this? No reply. The account disappeared 2 hours later. That night, I asked my mother again. Had Dany said anything else about the father? She said no. But she had heard Dany arguing with someone on the phone a few nights before. Something about a paternity test. Something about keeping it quiet. Now, I don't know what to believe. But here's what I do know. Dany has never done anything in her life without an angle. So, either this is a twisted Hail Mary to regain control or she's about to lose it completely. And if she thinks dragging me into this is going to fix anything, she's about to find out that I haven't even started to play all my cards.